G'day and welcome to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. We are talking round 22. We've got the big boys. We've got trade targets. We're talking Nick Dacos replacements. Answering your questions. Let's go!
Just done it from nowhere. Hoisted the goal from inside the 10. Sheed from the boundary. Dusty. Petty. Petrarca. Oh, wow. How good is that? The legend becomes immortal.
G'day and welcome to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Casey, and you can find me on X, Twitter, at Ball Boys Fantasy, and joined with me just, right in the nick of time, my friend Luke Rogerson. How are you, mate? Oh, I thought you'd forgotten about us.
I was breaking land speed records on the way home from the pub, mate.
From the pub on a Friday afternoon.
Well, I would never forget about the Ball Boys, but one of the fellas at work is heading off on paternity leave. He's going to be a daddy, so I thought it's best to go and celebrate him. So I'm 2 pints.
course.
I'm 2 pints deep already.
Jeez,
So
okay. We've got some loose Luke coming on.
If you can see some glassy eyes, that's what it's all about. And but I'm here. I made it. in the nick
No
of time.
crashes on the road or anything? Nothing?
No, but you know what I've actually realised? I need to pee real bad. So I might, at some stage, I may have to sneak off, but I'll be back.
Just get me talking and you'll duck out and no one will even notice. Okay, no worries. Well, mate, we've got a big round coming up. Obviously, a big name out with Nick Dacos out of a lot of people's sides.
It's been the talk of the town, hasn't it, really?
Yes. So we've been all shopping a lot of defenders. Some
Yep.
people who have got the luxury of DBP can maybe swing him to a midfielder, but Nick Dacos is a big, obviously, talking point. Obviously, it's fantasy finals at the moment, so some
Yep.
people might either have a bye if they went well last week and made it through to the prelim straight away. Some people are fighting for their lives to
Fighting for their lives.
their fantasy lives.
It's just fantasy.
and trying to get into that next round for the prelim. So lots happening, lots of stakes, hats and cars on the line. So
For some.
yeah.
Just bragging rights for others.
Hopefully, if there are a few people in the on the live show listening along right now, but let's maybe start by breaking down the teams. Not a too busy teams on last night.
That's what we like.
Yeah, we like that.
We don't want it to
Especially
be too
this
spicy.
time of the season.
Yeah, correct.
But starting off with, I think Tuke Miller's back. Obviously, we knew that he was going to be back. Just
What's
for
wrong
one
with
game.
his back?
No, he's back in the
Oh,
side.
he's back. Yeah, right. Sorry.
Yep, not suspended. Hopefully he's ready to go nuts again this week. And Matty Roberts is in.
Listen, when you make a good joke, you got to pause after it.
No, I just try to slip it in there.
No, pause and just bathe in it.
Just
It's
bathe in
just
it.
that's the way the dad
Well,
jokes
I've used
work.
that one already, so I just didn't want to.
Recycling's good for the environment, mate.
It is pretty good.
That's what I always say.
Matt Roberts is in. So just watch your loops because he's been sitting a lot of.
Is he still donutting on your bench? Or
Oh, yeah, he's
has he
been sitting there ever since I brought him in for that injured score. So he's
you
he's
got
coming-
one half score out of him, and now
Yep.
he's back.
Now he's back. So
Just when you don't want him.
Just when I don't want him, when I want to use, but I've got a few other red dots. So again, just make sure you don't make him captain. Little noteworthy thing here: Big O is back for Brisbane.
Yeah, nice.
I thought he might have been out for a little bit longer with his injury, but he
Who
is
are
back
the
in.
Lions taking on this week in the ruck department? What do we got?
That's a very good question. Oh, Adelaide, I want to say.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
so
irrelevant for us.
not super fancy relevant, but
No.
for future, he is back. Maybe for draft owners, Clayton Oliver and Grundy are back. That's probably the big headline for the news at the Demons. So Grundy is back. I think we predicted on Monday night that he would be back with the injury to Petty.
We did sort of always put this up as a flag, and we didn't expect that he would be back. Based on an injury of someone, but we
Yeah.
did always say, and a lot of people out there were saying the same thing: is if you go to Gorn, there's that really high reward opportunity, but
Yeah.
there is also that opportunity that Grundy could come back at some point. So
Do you reckon how much is he rucking? Do you reckon?
I'd have to say it's not very much.
Like, give it percentage wise, like 30%, 40%,
20%.
20%? Ooh.
Why would you? Like, this is a cutthroat business we're talking about, the AFL. Where he's not out there
I mean, they're versing Carlton, so it's going to be a tough game.
Yeah, I just don't
Max
think there's
is-
we want to make you feel good, Brody. We're going to give you... I think they go, we know what's good in the ruck, and that's Max Gawn. And if you can fit into our team as a forward, then you'll stay. If you can't, see you later.
Yeah, he's going from forward to the bench little
the
rock
twos.
to the forward line. So look, it'll be interesting to see how they play it, and if you have Gawn in your side and maybe a few other guys that you want to trade out, like it'll be interesting where people have him in their like priority to trade outs, because it probably moves him into that range where you probably compared to a Marshall at English, you probably don't want him to be there with Grundy there. But I mean,
Would you have a look at it for a week?
Maybe. I mean, Carlton are actually a pretty tough matchup for rucks anyway.
Yeah. I guess it depends where the rest of your team's at, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. In terms of like, you know, if you have the luxury, he might not be the worst guy to trade out and just jump at that shadow and move on if you have the luxury. But yeah, interesting for people to sort of debate and figure that one out.
We saw teams that were in the luxurious position of even considering a trade out of Dacos last week, or even a loop of Dacos last week. Then were affirmed by what happened. So
they're better coaches out there than us, Luke, and they have better teams than we do.
You're shitting me.
No, they're out there.
Fuck.
Yeah, and they might be able to do things like that.
They may well be able to.
They might not have other shit players like Jack McRae and Noah Anderson in their side. So
props to it.
Yes. And Clayton Oliver, he's back. What do we? You can't jump on him this week. He'd be the super pod.
I've had 2 points, and
No.
I didn't even check the teams last night. So this is the first I'm finding out about this right now, and I'm trading him in.
Clayton Oliver, Clary, he's back.
Clary's coming into the Oxlongs.
You'd think with how
It's loose as a goose.
Yeah. The other thing is they're versing Carlton, and Carlton have been
Yeah.
nearly the number one hardest team for. In fact, over the last 10, they are the number one hardest team, even harder than a Port Adelaide and Adelaide for midfielders to score against. So it's the wrong matchup. It's the first game back. I think you definitely wait 1 week, but next week.
Look, I'm mucking around a little bit. I don't
it.
even think that that's a huge swing for the fences player. I think that there's and think about it this way. Like, yes, he's going to be unique because no one is really going to go there. But you've also got other players who aren't coming off sort of long-term soft tissues, aren't coming up against Carlton, that are also unique. Like Rory Laird's going to be somewhat unique this week. These kind of guys. So I think you can make that unique play without necessarily going straight to Clary this week. Would you agree on that?
100% agree, for sure, especially with that matchup. Jacob Hopper is out, injured. I'm not exactly sure what. I'm not sure if you caught that, but he's out. Hopefully Timmy T...
Yeah, well, we can
maybe go to pre-buy Timmy T.
Fingers crossed.
I think my hot take, it was a couple of weeks ago. Since I got that one hot take right, my last 2 hot takes have been absolutely
Rubbish.
trash.
Too spicy.
Yeah, too spicy. Nick Dacos was my hot take last week and cursed him for everyone. Yes. So Hopper is out. Hopefully Timmy T is back and doing big things. And also potentially, depending on the 5 o'clock teams, Matt Flynn is back in for the GWS Giants. Maybe a bit of a ruck share there for our boy Briggsy. So if you still have him in your fantasy team, or if you have him in draft, could be a little bit of a hit there.
Yeah, you'd have to think most people have moved off in Classic.
You'd have to think. There might be some people that still are rolling with him, but probably one that I would, if he isn't in there, I'd be wanting to trade out of him ASAP. So, those are the teams. Nothing too eventful there. So,
no.
Yes.
Makes for happy coaches, but it doesn't make for great content.
No, not too much content, and maybe more decision making to make when you don't have too many more outs outside that Dacos thing. So we've got to actually come up with some things to do in terms of some trade in targets.
Here we go, trade targets. Got the graphic on the screen. We're ready to go, and I will be back with you momentarily.
Okay, so this week I've broken it up into defenders, mids, and forwards again because we are talking about Nick Dacos and his potential targets. Now, there's a lot of good options out there, I think. There's a few maybe more risky than others. I still think that, especially if you're in the contention for a hat, if you're maybe going up against a matchup that has this player that James Sicily is the number one target for, those who don't have him, I think he's got a good matchup this week. He has a high ceiling, so despite him being highly owned, I still think he's a good target for, I guess, the risk adverse. Sam Doherty, along the same sort of lines, I'd have him pegged behind James Sicily because the matchup for Sicily is better. My best pick of all of the unique and cheaper players, to me, is Jaden Short. I think he's got St Kilda this week, and then he's got North Melbourne the week after that. So you've got bang, great matchups in consecutive weeks. Plus, he's shown at least somewhat of a ceiling so far this season. So I think that he's definitely a guy that you can bring in, get instant reward. He's cheap. You make some money and get an upgrade on the other end. I've got Luke Ryan, the next guy in terms of my preference because of his high ceiling. I've been big on Luke Ryan for a number of weeks, couple of months now, and I still think that he's a great option. I've got at number 5 here, and Luke, now that you're back, I'll get your opinion on this guy here.
It's a bit early to break the seal, isn't it?
It is a bit early. You'll be ducking out every 5 minutes after this. But Nick Newman at number 5, I've seen some people ranking him, as maybe the best of those kind of cheaper guys, short, Luke Ryan.
Yeah.
I have just a little bit of trouble. I don't know what it is, believing in Nick Newman. Maybe it's just the fact that he's doing it over this last 5 or 6 weeks, but not really the entire season.
Yeah, it's...
Versus I've seen seasons of Jaden Short go big. I've seen seasons of Luke Ryan go big. It doesn't feel proven to me just yet, but he is playing great footy.
He is, and I don't necessarily... I'm a little bit in sort of disagreement. I don't necessarily think that he's kind of a lesser option, but for me, when I look at it, he's more expensive, isn't he? So...
Yeah. 38K.
So, and then Shorty's...
You're still making money going from Dacos.
You are still making money, but I suspect that maybe people might want to make a little bit more money. And so, what I've been hearing out there amongst the community and my sort of thinking on it too is that you downgrade from Dacos. If you're going down from Dacos, you need to make sure that the downgrade gets you the upgrade you want on the other end. Like, there's no point in going to Newman if you fall short of who you really want to go to on the other end. I'd rather go to Short in that scenario. So that's kind of the reason that I'm staying away from Newman, is because it just doesn't get me where I want to go on the other side of it.
Yeah, I think he was a play last week when he had that St Kilda matchup, and obviously he proved that right with a 130 score. This week I'm less excited about it, just because I just prefer the other options a bit more. And then last on this list, I do have Jack Ziebell here. Now, he's been confirmed that he's not going to be playing the final round of the year. So if you trade him in, it's 2 weeks maximum.
2-week play. Okay.
Now, I've seen some people, I think the trader said this, I've seen a few other people on Twitter say, does this make it feel like these next 2 weeks are even better than if he was, like, do you know what I mean? Like, he's got an expiration date.
Yeah.
Jack, 2 weeks, go crazy, mate. And then the last week, we're going to head over to the Rooks. Like, is there any logic or maybe not logic, but like, is there a narrative that holds up to that?
Now that he's come out and said that, or that they've come out and said that he won't play in the last game, that for me lessens the narrative that he could potentially be the sub or be subbed as well. I kind of feel like if it didn't have a sort of full stop on it like they've put on it, I'd feel like, could that sub risk be there? But they've kind of gone, okay, you're not playing this, you get 2, and you think he's going to get 2 good cracks at it.
Yeah. Is it a play that, like, I mean, because I think I think a lot of people will be able to make enough money going to like a Jaden Short from Dacos to make their moves.
Going to Ziebell is excess, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think the money for most teams makes that much of a difference on the other end. So you're getting in Ziebell because you think he's going to score more than those other guys.
Correct. So don't, because even if you pocket a heap of cash from the Ziebell trade for next week, unless there's another injury, it doesn't really benefit you, because you're probably going to make a downgrade next week from one of your bench rookies that's got a little bit of cash anyway. So unless we've talked about this a little bit in the past few weeks, unless you can do some forward planning and you can really see an avenue of how that extra, it's 300K or something down to Ziebell, and unless you can see an avenue where that's really going to help you in the coming weeks, I wouldn't be making that trade based on money. Like you said, I'd be making it based on the fact that you think Ziebell's going to score more than those guys.
The only argument that I can see that I really do like about bringing in Jack Ziebell is if this week, if you can get like a Dacos down to like a Short, and use that money to get, maybe you still got a Windhager or someone else more expensive on your bench, and get them up to a Ziebell, and use him as like at forward defender, like swingman loop, and
23rd premium.
Yeah, 23rd premium, and then you can have a look at a few different lines, and
that's a scenario that I would be, if my team was in that position, I would look to explore.
I think that's a very, very tricky play for some people if you are maybe looking a little bit further back, or like, within reach of like a hat for say, but it's like a bit of a long shot. I think that could definitely be a bit of a play for some people if you want to get real tricky with it. It would be a bit situational, depending on how early some of your worst players were playing and if you were nervous about some certain players, but it definitely could be something. And, with a lot of midfield forward DPPs, you could basically loop and have a look at every player in their line. The only thing is, I think that North Melbourne play early in the weekend. I want to say they play the first game on Saturday. They do. So it might have to be done through one of these other guys. But that's the only scenario where I feel like Jack Zeeble, let's go, jump on him. Otherwise, say Carnage hits you, you've already got a forced trade in that last round. It could stitch you up a fair bit when it's like fantasy finals, for example.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
There's definitely risk there. All right, let's go into the mids. Number one, I've got the two Essendon boys. Zach Merritt, Darcy Parish, I think, up against North. Now, North are actually giving up nearly twice as much fantasy points to midfielders as, not twice as much, but the difference, according to DFS, is nearly double for North Melbourne versus West Coast.
Yeah.
So
West Coast still the second ranked.
Yeah, West Coast is second, North are ahead, and ahead by a fair bit in terms of easiest matchups. So I think they're going to have a day out this weekend. So I think they're the number 1 and 2 targets.
Yep.
I had a hard time splitting these next two, and I've landed on Caleb Sarong and then Rory Laird next. So this is actually looking where, again, hopefully Louis not listening to this podcast, although I don't think he has the capacity to bring him in anyway. But I'm bringing in Caleb Sarong over Rory Laird. What are your thoughts on that? Just with the West Coast matchup.
I like Caleb Sarong. I owned him for a portion this year, and he was safe
He's
as
a
house.
great guy.
Like, he was a good watch and sort of ever consistent. So you're going to bring in, you said Sarong over Laird.
Yeah, Sarong over Laird.
West Coast matchup.
Now, Laird plays Brisbane, which I've heard a few people say that they're a tough matchup. They've actually been one of the better matchups for midfielders recently, especially over the last 5, where they've been giving up, I think, third most to inside mids. But at the Gabba, also the inclusion of a Matt Crouch, I just don't know if that just limits Laird's ceiling a little bit compared to when Crouch wasn't in there. Because if you have a Keys or a Rochelle or one of those guys in there, they're not quite accumulating quite as much as the Matt Crouch has been the last couple of weeks.
Do you think that Caleb Sarong has the capacity to give you a 150 game?
I don't know about a 150, but a 130, he's done. He gave us a 125 last week against the Lions. And I think against West Coast, I think earlier in the season he gave us a 120 score. So I'm pretty happy to take that. I think that's a great score. And he's only gone under 90 once the entire season, I believe. So his floor is incredibly safe.
Yeah, I think the floor there is safe. Laird has a bigger ceiling, or am I jaded by what we saw last year?
Laird does have maybe a more consistent 130 plus ceiling, but in saying that, it's not
this year.
Not like it was last year. So he's gone 131, 2, 3, 4 times this year, and 3 of the 4 are 131. So he's only had that one score, 140 plus, and that was against Richmond all the way back in round 2. So they're actually kind of similar in terms of, I guess, where they usually sit. The 105 to 125 kind of range is kind of where they fluctuate between.
And I guess remove what we think. We listen to a lot of podcasts during the week, and a lot of very well-credentialed people this time of year are talking about matchups, play the matchups. Stato was back on the pod this week, which was good to see, and he was talking about your matchups this time of year. So, I mean, if you're looking at Sarong and Laird, who's got the better matchup this week?
Yeah. So I'm taking a punt on Caleb Sarong when I had the ability to bring in Rory Laird as well this week. Yeah. Despite me thinking, I guess, Rory Laird is historically the better fantasy player, I mean, Caleb Strong's been a fucking gun this year. He's averaging actually more than Brayshaw, averaging basically 110, and has a great matchup against West Coast. So I like him as a good trading target for the midfielders. And then number 5, if you're looking for a pod, Tom Liberatore. He's got a great run coming up. Slight flag on a tag this week.
Yeah, I saw that. I heard about that.
There's some talk about them tagging an inside player with McGuinness, but they haven't done really that yet, so I don't know if I buy into it.
You don't want to be finned.
You don't want to be finned. But do you really think they go Libba? Jeez.
You don't want to get finned.
You have had a couple of beers, haven't you?
Yeah. But serious.
No, but I think I still think he's a good option. I still think he's got Hawthorn this week. I think they have, I want to say West Coast the week after.
Yeah, they got a dream little run here.
And he's been a gun, the entire season. So I think he's, of the pod options, probably my favourite Because I think Laird and Sarong are probably about 35% owned in the top 100 and top 1,000. Libba would be close to 0. So it'd be very, very unique. Forwards.
What do we got going on the forwards? Luke Jackson deserves some discussion this week.
Yeah. Is he... Let's say you had the scenario where you had like someone in like your forward line that can swing to the defenders.
Yeah.
You had like a Himmelberg or a Sheasel or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess effectively you could trade Sheasel down to him or whatever. But are you taking Luke Jackson over any of those defenders like a Short, a Luke Ryan? I think you had this kind of a question before where you were Short versus Luke Jackson.
Yeah, and
how big can he go over these next couple of weeks?
Well, didn't he go 140 on the weekend?
149, yeah.
And the two matchups that he's got coming up are just monstrous.
So he's got West Coast, best matchups for Ruckman.
Yeah.
Now, Bailey Williams got off his 1 week, so he is playing.
Okay.
And
But still a
also,
good matchup.
Vicentini, is that his name?
He got dropped. I can see the.
I think he's got an injury. So Sam Hayes has come in for Port Adelaide, which I'd have to think is a tougher matchup. Maybe not still a
Maybe
tough
tougher,
matchup,
but I still don't. Yeah.
but maybe not quite the layup that we thought it was.
Yeah. What? So it's all situational this time of year, and so what kind of scenario would you risk it to go to Luke Jackson? Is it the one we've been talking about for weeks, where you're just a little bit off the top 100, or you're a little bit off the high lux, and so you just go, okay, I'm just going to try and.
Well, I think of all of the cheaper options. So say you're not looking at those sort of big five where it's Cogs, Rosie, Dunkley, Taranto, Goulden.
Yeah.
If you're looking for that sixth player between he, Flanders, and Butters, say you didn't have any of those three, you're looking for one of them, I think that he is the best play.
Yeah.
Because of those matchup, because of the upside, low ownership.
Do you reckon Louis is going to trade JJ to Jackson?
I reckon he will. Yeah, I think he will. So we'll have to see how it goes. Hopefully, big Bailey Williams can get up there. But yeah, I think that is the play.
Cheering for Bailey Williams.
I think that is the play if you're looking for those cheaper forwards. I'd probably go him over a Butters and a Flanders. But if you prefer those mids, I'd probably go Butters over Flanders again. So I'd rank them Jackson, Butters, Flanders in that order for your forwards. But interesting to see how he goes. Yeah, with those
six tackles on the weekend. So stat breakdown is 13 kicks,
40 plus hit outs. So he's done twice in the last 3 games.
Yeah, so the hit outs I think are pretty safe. They're going to be somewhere between that.
It's going to give him a really high floor, which is good.
6 tackles, maybe not as much contest.
Maybe it's a bit more of an open game.
But still, I mean, if you get 115 out of him, it's still a win.
Yeah, exactly, especially for that price.
Yeah.
And he's got Port Adelaide the next week, so probably a similar sort of score that week as well. So, yeah, I think those are the trade targets. What are you looking at doing this week? Are you pretty set with your trades?
I think, based on what I've done in the last couple of weeks, I've been trying to just set my trades at the start of the week and then not think too much about it.
Stick with it.
Where I'm at the minute is Shorty in and for Dacos, making enough money to then turn Sheasel into...
so you're getting Sheasel out.
Into a premium mid. So I traded in Laird earlier in the week. Whether it stays.
Maybe it's wrong.
I just had a peek at the big boys too, and I'm pulling my hair out. So
okay, well, speaking of
is it time?
Big boys, let's do it.
Wait a sec,
Hold on.
Got to get me buttons sorted. Just give us a bloody second. Okay, it's big boy time.
The ball boys, big boys. Now, look, I'm ashamed to say that we missed Bont last week. It really put a sour note on our Friday night. And
have you stopped overthinking it? Because I reckon you were on a great run there, and then I reckon you got in your head.
Look, I can tell you that not much thought. No, I'm kidding. no. Look, I think I've found the winning formula again. Okay. And
reveal what's your winning formula?
Just target the best matchups, and
okay.
North Melbourne are the best matchup. So one.
Who's playing the Richmond Eagles? But
yes, that's a good point.
Shit.
Yeah, but Dusty's back in, so they're no longer the Richmond Eagles.
Oh, okay.
Zach Merritt versus North Melbourne is the number 1 ball boys, big boys.
I have the feeling this is going to be consensus across the board.
I think it has to be.
I mean, like even a bloke without his picker degree I had a bit of a look and I thought Zach Merritt against North Melbourne.
Merritt against North Melbourne.
So-
it's not like I'm not going to shock the world with this pick.
No, I think sometimes you have to go the consensus.
You got to take the layup when it's there. You take what the defense gives you. They gave me a layup and it's there.
I know that I've stopped you after your first big boy, but talk to me. So if there's people out there who are sitting there thinking, I'm just outside where I want to be, I want to swing for the fences, and I know everyone's going to put the VC on Merritt this week. Is there should people go otherwise, or is it one of those ones where
no, let's go otherwise.
Okay.
His teammate.
Well, we don't have to go far.
Parish.
Okay.
Is number 2 against
DP3.
North Melbourne. I feel like this is a game very much suited for a Darcy Parish.
Will you have two blokes going 140 plus?
Well, see, I don't know if that's the thing, right? So I feel like one can go 140. I don't know if two can go 140.
So
just
then,
by the nature of the amount of ball going around. You might get two 120s, maybe two 130s, but you could have a situation where one goes 140, one goes like 115 or something like that. And there's a chance that Parish could be the guy that takes the
okay. But based on this,
there.
you think Merritt's going to take the cake?
Look, I'm hedging my bets a little bit here, but because he's going to be the safer option and more people will go there. And he has shown the 150 plus ceiling this year. Parish hasn't quite. Despite his high floor, the ceiling hasn't been there like Merritt's. So for that reason, Merritt is the number 1. But Parish, if you want it to be different, if you wanted to hedge your bets, still take advantage of that juicy matchup, he is the guy that I potentially would do it as a VC. Because again, they play the first game on Saturday, so you don't have to lock it in. Parish could be a good alternative.
Okay.
I want to talk to you about these next 2 guys. At number 3, I've got Caleb Sarong. And at number 4, I've got James Sicily.
Can you VC Sicily this week? When do the Hawks play?
They play Sunday 1:10 on a Sunday. So if you go and Merritt, you can't. You're falling back on Sicily, which kind of plays into my thinking here. Because if you're going to VC one of these bombers, I think I'd rather go into a Sarong versus a West Coast who's not gone under 100 very many times this season, than go into a Sicily, who, despite having a good matchup against the Bulldogs, there's been a bit of talk about them giving a bit of attention. He went huge against the Pies last week, which always... And then they won. They beat the Pies. So that always catches the eyes of coaches in the AFL. And it just kind of brings... I mean, I think this exact game last year in Tasmania, I believe it was the same venue as well. He went like 150 in that last game of the round. So
the trouble with the argument about coaches watching and stuff is we saw the blueprint for sort of stopping James Sicily with a little bit of attention, and then we thought, oh well, Collingwood's sort of a toughish matchup. No one sort of really went there, and then he goes and does that, and we go, well, it's inexplicable that Craig McRae didn't put attention into him. Yeah. So are we going to be left, with our dicks in our hands at the end of this week thinking, well, fucking, what the hell's Luke Beveridge doing? He's just seen him go 160 and he lets him do it again.
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, you could say like the St Kilda matchup, which we all thought was like a James Sicily wet dream right there, was a big nothing there because they sat someone next to him, and then
that's true.
The Saints ended up winning that game. So like it proved effective.
If you could VC him, it'd be a different story, wouldn't it?
If you could VC him, it'd be an amazing VC. I just have a little bit of nerves going into him as a captain.
There's nothing after
So
him.
that's why I've ranked Caleb Sarong ahead of him for more of that safety factor. Okay. But say your matchup was kind of, you needed to go with a bit of a bold choice, then I think Sicily, in like a ceiling sense, could be... There's an argument for him to go ahead of a Sarong because he has scored over 150, I think, 3 times this year. So
you wouldn't... Now that Hopper's not playing, you wouldn't go Sicily into a Taranto against St Kilda?
See, I thought about a Taranto, but he's just been too shit. Frankly, he just hasn't shown us much since the bye. In fact, spoiler alert, he didn't even make this list at all. There's a lot of good players to fit into 10 spots, but I won't be ranking Tim Taranto. I will rank the other Tim, though, Tim English, at number 5 against Hawthorn. I vowed never again to let matchups dissuade me from putting Tim English in my top 5. So he is in there at number 5 just because he is the highest averaging player in the comp right now, averaging 120, which I don't know if it's getting enough love because 120 over the course of the season is incredible. And he is the only player doing it at the moment. So he is at number 5.
I think the Calvinator might have hijacked the DT talk YouTube account there because he reckons the dog's gonna be barking.
The dog will bark. I just look a VC. I'd love it. I'd love a VC. Look, we won't need it though.
I mean,
the Bombers they'll sort us out.
We know how much James Sicily loves Tasmania as well.
Yeah.
So
I wonder how that is. That
I think
that
that's
positive or
I
negative?
think that's still a sore point for old Warnie about the fact that the sick dog thinks it's a hole.
I'd feel a bit dirty about that.
Tassie's
too,
a lovely place. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Yeah. I'm sure I've never been, but I'm sure it is.
You should go.
I should go. All right. Running out the top 10. Number 6, I've got Jordan Dawson at Brisbane. 7, I've got Rory Laird at Brisbane as well. They kind of just knocked down a little bit because of that Matt Crouch factor, just because he is collecting a lot of the ball.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, really weird, right? It just kind of shaves off a little bit of the ceiling from both of those boys. Number 8, Andrew Brayshaw versus West Coast. Great matchup at Brayshaw. He has a bit of a trouble versus West Coast historically, so he's a bit behind Caleb Sarong. And 9, I've got Rowan Marshall, who I believe was quite high on Calvin's list against Richmond. Look, it's a decent matchup. I wouldn't say it's an extremely positive one, but it is a decent one versus Richmond. I don't know. I just feel like there's better options. And then the Bont, I've kind of just kept in the list here versus Hawthorn.
If this is really interesting because let's say that Finn McGuinness goes absolutely nowhere near Bont tonight.
Well, I don't think he will. I think it'll be the other guy. What's the other guy's name? The bigger bloke.
The Irishman.
Yeah, the Irishman. Can't believe we're using the Irishman as a.
We've regressed.
I'm really blanking here. Hold on.
I keep wanting to say Conor McGregor.
Conor Nash.
Conor McGregor.
Conor Nash. But if he, I think he's the one that goes to him.
But like you've got him at 10 on the big boys. But if no one goes to Bont tonight,
he's going huge.
Is it tonight?
No, it's on Sunday.
If it was tonight, I was going to be like, well, we're not doing it because I need my sanity.
Yeah, no, it's on Sunday.
Tonight's a shit game.
Yeah, there's not much fantasy relevance tonight, but
sucks.
yeah, I think Conor Nash goes him, and look, Bont is probably the most untaggable player in the game right now. But it's sometimes just enough to lower his ceiling a little
even
bit.
if they force him to go forward and he kicks 4 goals, it's still not great fantasy wise. But
I think one of Bont's worst scores this year as well was against the Hawthorn in round 7, where he scored 90 points, so his second lowest score for the season. So
low floor, high floor, eh?
Yeah, high floor.
Okay, can we play the big boys thing one more time?
Of course. All right.
Have a look at some teams. What have we got going?
5 o'clock. I don't feel like there's too much to really look out for
I
here.
think this t-shirt's been through the dryer.
Oh, yeah. You're feeling yourself, man.
Pipes are looking good. Just get the titties moving.
All right. Settle down.
Oh.
Keep it PG here, mate.
2.5 beers.
Okay. Now, JJ. I forgot to mention before, JJ is out injured, which shame for old Louis there.
The old 1 week trade.
He's got a couple of injured players. That's a shame, mate. Unlucky. No, he's probably.
We better do the buddy content creators. Shout out after this.
Yeah, we'll give a little shout out to them in a second. So he's out. Carl Amon's back in. Nothing too exciting there. I guess the main thing here for the Giants, they don't have Flynn named, so Briggsy is still solo rucking it for the Giants. Vicentini out injured, as we sort of mentioned before, but otherwise, nothing else super exciting here. Yeah, Grimes, Dusty back in for the Tigers.
Let's go. Can't be any worse than last week.
Yeah, obviously can't be worse. I mean, it's at Marvel again, which is, Richmond just hates Marvel.
We are dog meat at Marvel, aren't we?
Yeah, which is just one of the weirdest things. But anyway, nothing too exciting there for the 5 o'clock teams, but for Briggs owners, draft owners like myself, who's got a final this week.
Rubbing it in.
It's good news for that. Absolutely, my team is on fire right now. All right, let's maybe talk. Do you want to do hot takes?
Let's do some spicy takes.
Let's do it. This has become the kiss of death these last couple of weeks for my spicy
We're the
takes.
Nathan Brown sports bet ensemble there,
this
aren't
is
we?
the Moz of all Mozes.